All right. Welcome to the Roundtable. I am Jennifer Eller, and with me is Mike Hill, our fearless leader through all these many years. Today actually is October 31st, and it is Life Church's 19th birthday. So, yay.
You know what? Who would have ever thought? I've had this question a lot. Who would have ever thought in the brainstorming of launching a church that you would launch on Halloween? Mm-hmm. You ever think about that? Like, who in the world came up with that idea? Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe me.
Yeah.
I think the idea was we were doing these soft launches, and, you know, in the beginning, there was this projected date we were going to get everything out. And so we were doing like soft launches, but it was to the point where doing church in your house, you haven't brought any money in, like nothing's going on. I'm like, what's the first Sunday we can get this done? Yeah. So Halloween.
Yep. There you go.
Turn the Day of the Dead into the Day of Life.
Right.
For all you Halloween lovers. Tammy. Yeah.
So we thought for this podcast, we would just reminisce a little bit about the last 19 years and then just talk a little bit about the future. What does it look like for Life Church and the dreams that Mike has for us? So we're just going to kind of start at the very beginning of how Life Church came to this building. What was that process like?
Well, you know what the funny thing is? Nick, Jennifer, and I were all sitting around talking about this, and to think that when they first went to plant the church, they had like 3 or 4 people that were going to be the church planners, and I was the last pick. They were like, we're going to do this guy and this guy and this guy, and then they all bailed out. And so they're like, hey, they give me a call and said, hey, we want to be able to use you and be able to do that. So, I mean, that I was thinking, isn't that funny how, you know, God works, and even though, you know, everybody has a plan that.
So those other guys, did they become church planters? No, they never at all. Okay.
Well, it started off that Life Church in Bluffton was going to plant 10 churches in 10 years. Like that was their vision. And then, without getting into all of the, you know, we got started. And when we got started, they haven't planted a church. Well, again, maybe they would say they planted churches in Liberia, which I don't really know. This would be the only one around here, but that was there. They wanted to be, you know, a church planting church, and, you know, the other guys were, one wanted to stay bivocational, you know, and so they were like, and ended up coming here. Greg Luganbill. Did you ever meet Greg?
I didn't, no.
Yeah, so great guy, but he just wanted to be bivocational, and but he came and was a part of the church plan, helped out, and they lived in Zanesville, and, you know, came over from there. So I that part I did think of, you know, all of the little things that could have changed. Just like we come over here, Central School, you know, was supposed to be the place that we were supposed to be, and it was kind of modeled after Life Church Bluffton because they took over the old Bluffton High School, and so we were going to do Central School. We had all the plans. We were driving over here and get a call that like, hey, you know, the superintendent of the schools has made a decision that they don't want church inside of the Central School building. So it was like going back to ground zero. So if you travel around Huntington, like, what building are you going to pick from? And if you can imagine driving around so if you're from Huntington or you've been down here, this building kind of sticks out. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, this big building, glass windows, and I don't even know what made me stop here. I was just driving around, and I think it was a for lease sign was out there. And
I don't even know how you would make it to really this part of town.
Well, because Central wasn't that far. I mean, Central was in the downtown.
It's in the downtown. It's in the heart, but this is just kind of a little
I think maybe in just sheer desperation thinking, I just quit my job, you know, and we're supposed to be over here to plant a church. And now we don't have a building because we wanted to move over here in April and be able to, you know, plant in the fall, you know, and so no building. I mean, how are you even going to do it? So I just took out of desperation.
And how many buildings were probably even available to rent at that time? Probably not. I mean, now you look around, there's all these buildings that you could like rent and stuff, but
yeah, there were some old, abandoned churches. And I think it got turned into an insurance agency and some other places, but it didn't really fit because from the beginning, I wanted to be able to have a building that could be a multi-purpose center. You know, I wanted it to be something that was big enough or had enough availability that you could do other things in it. And some of the other buildings, like you could start a church in them because they were either abandoned churches or smaller buildings, but it was like, I just don't think, you know, that fits the vision, you know, that at least for me of wanting to be able to come over and plant a church and be able to see that building used for something else. And then driving around, I think it said for lease. And so I came in here and grabbed the paper and they used to play with noon ball, you know, basketball at noon over there. And so I came back and be like, hey, I was driving around. This is the building I saw. So all the leadership team came over and they looked at it and I'll never forget. They all looked at it and started laughing. They're like, there is no possible way that we're going to be able to do a church in there. And I just remember the guy had it and he crumbled up and threw it in the bleachers and they went back to playing basketball. And then, you know, long story short, because I was just like trying to sell the vision, like we could do a lot with this. It already got people in there leasing and we could, even if we go in there and lease and then lease with the option to purchase or do something like that. So, yeah, I mean, quite an ordeal to end up with, you know, 60,000 square foot building for a church plant. That's, you know, a gift and a curse.
So did they change their mind then? Because I mean, of course you're here.
Yeah. So what happened is that to be able to get a building like this, again, you have to do what's called a bargain sale. So you have to work with somebody to help with, you know, tax incentives and somebody that would help us get started. And so Trout Mosier from National Oil, you know, helped us come in and, you know, for that helped get us off the ground with, you know, doing the bargain sale. And Tittman Group, who owned it at the time, was like, we don't really want to own anything in Huntington anymore. Like it's out of our range and we don't want to really do it. And so I talked to the Tittman Group and then, you know, National Oil got brought in and yeah, we just looked at it and it was kind of a long shot. I mean, the building had to appraise for a certain amount and then they had to sell for a certain amount, which was way under what they wanted to sell it for. And yeah, I guess God wanted to see us in this building. And in the beginning, it was like, what are we doing? This is a terrible idea. You have to take care of a 60,000 square foot building. You have to have leases. But now, if you look at it, I mean, what a great blessing the building's been. And yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, exciting from that.
So tell us about like that first service that you had leading up to that. You know, how many people were here? What was that experience like through that first couple of months?
Yeah. So the funny thing about coming to Huntington, so Shane and Jen Gerber moved over here with us. We both lived in Carlisle Crossing. And then they tried to recruit people from Life Church because it wasn't that far away to be able to come so that if you were failing at the whole idea of reaching, you know what I mean? Like how many people can you reach, you know? And so I used to come over here and I'd go to Richard's and have breakfast. So I'd go to I think they called it the Strawberry Fest or something. It used to be yeah. And the funny thing about Huntington is that it's kind of cliquish, you know, it was very much like if you weren't in the in group, you know, then it was hard to like be accepted. And then there was a group of people that were like, and this is kind of funny, I never thought about it, but there is 110 churches in Huntington already, you know, but the average church attendance was like 85 to 90 people. So anyway, so we were going around, we were trying to meet people, and I think you have this glamorous idea that, oh man, people are just going to be so excited about a new church. And that wasn't the case. Talked to a lot of people. I think a lot of people's story was, I've been in church. I'm never going back, right? Like I had my hand in the fire. I'm never going to do that again. It was a bad experience or I had church hurt or, you know, things just weren't good. So there were a lot of those conversations and then there's the normal, like when you plan a church, there are people that were going to church but hated their church and wanted to come and see if, you know, this church could be what they wanted it to be. So anyway, they recruited like I don't know, 100, 150 people. We did a big campaign. We did billboards and sent out flyers. And so the first Sunday was funny.
Talk about the campaign that you did, because we were talking about that. And I meant to try to pull it out.
Yeah. I forget what it actually said, but they took a picture with Isaac and he had this big thing of peas in front of him. And it essentially was like, you might not like your peas, but you're going to love Life Church. Yeah. I mean, it was, whoever the marketing person had a way better slogan than that. The slogan was way better. I forgot to even look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a better slogan than that, but it's Isaac.
And he's probably like 3 or so. He's not very old.
He
He's
was
so
little.
cute.
Yeah, he was sitting there and smiling and this big.
Yeah, I remember, I remember getting it in the mail too.
Yeah. Well, what did you think when you got it in the mail?
Well, we weren't ready to come to church.
Yeah, so were you like, what a stupid flyer?
I don't know my thoughts.
We were like, what kind of church puts out a flyer like this?
No, but I thought, super cute kid, so now I adore him. But so.
Yeah, so we did all the things. And so the first Sunday was funny because it was like 275 people. And yeah. So the idea was...
But 275, and how was there 275 people?
Yeah, because people from Life Church Bluffton came and like...
You inflated your numbers.
Yeah, no, for sure. You like stage it so that you don't look like a complete failure, in the beginning. And they call it, again, the funny thing is we were trained to be church planners. And so you go through the whole like what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to prepare. But I don't think anything prepares you for planning a church and or... leading a church. Like, I just don't think there is preparation for that. And so in that they say, hey, there's this idea of critical mass. So like when you parachute drop somebody into a community, you need to get a commitment from at least 100 people, because 100 people is critical mass. So that way, if a new guest comes, they're not going to be like,
there's 3 people sitting here.
Yeah. It's like on a Friday night and you drive into the parking lot to go out to eat to the place that has nobody. You're like, wait a second.
Are they open? Do I go?
This food must be awful. If you can get on a Friday night without reservations or a Saturday night without reservations, it probably is awful, And so the same concept was in a church, like who wants to show up and there's 10 cars, if you're a new believer. And so the critical mass, those people were supposed to stay for a while, but it's like everybody, they came with the right intentions, but only a few people stayed. Like Dave Smith, Tom and Pam Heckberg, they were people that, they came from the beginning and they stayed and, they wanted to be a part of it. Everybody else came and it was like, cool. Hey, we launched a church, but the idea that, you were going to,
it's hard work.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, to be able to launch it, to keep it going, and I think just what we figured out is that it's really hard to come from another community into a community and be able to do it. Now it's changed a little bit now, but used to be, it's just hard. You don't, your kids don't know each other. You don't go to the schools. And so anyway, I mean, that lasted for like 2 weeks. And then I think probably within the first month, we had went from that first service and we probably got down to 100. And then I would say consistently for the first couple years, we were probably 50, 60 people, from the beginning. And I can just remember complaining about it. Like, what am I doing? Like, we really did this. And because the other part of it is that how are you going to keep this going? Like, how do you keep a church of 50 people going? And what does that look like? And I thought God wanted us to reach people. And because we went through, part of the reason we lost so many people in the first month is me, as people would come and they came from other churches and they would want a meeting right away. And so again, you're planning a church, you're meeting with people all the time and they're like, listen, I went to this church. I want this church to do this. And I want this church to do this. And I want you to know that if you do this, we'll give you, we'll support you financially. And if you do that, and I'm like, that's not the vision. That's not what we're doing. And they would leave, and I'm like, I just didn't want to give in. Like, I just felt like if you gave in to all those people just to have it, that the church would never last. Right. And so it just dwindled because people were like, well, they won't do what we want them to do, and so we'll go find a church where they will. And so I think the numbers dwindled and I think they stayed that way because in the beginning, church plants tend to attract a lot of people that are unhappy and think that they'll be happy because they can manipulate what you're doing. And so the numbers declined, and, you know, we consistently were at low numbers. And at the time, Greg Miller, my friend from Guatemala that we had went on a ton of mission trips with, you know, I was just talking to him about it, and yeah, he was planning a church. And so I said, well, how's it going with you? And he said, well, I went in this last Sunday and there was nobody there. And I said, well, what did you do? He's like, I got up and preached.
You're faithful. You just have to be faithful.
And I'll never forget it. Like, God didn't tell us to attract numbers. God said, be faithful. God said, get up and preach my word. God said, he'll draw the people. And again, that has been a steadfast thing for me, is just to say, listen, don't get overly excited about when people come, because it's not you, and don't get overly critical when people leave, because it's not you. At the end of the day, God said he will grow his church. And the most important thing is that if he grows it, the gates of hell won't prevail. You know, the gates of hell prevails against church all the time, you know, because man builds it and man puts things into place and man props up things. And then that propping up just goes away. I mean, at some point that's just not going to last. And so going through the hard times of just saying, like, God, if this is your church and we're going to do whatever you ask us to do. But I mean, it is a little disappointing when we don't get immediate results, you know, for the things that we're doing. But I'm so thankful for today that the people that were with us stuck with it. We're like, hey, we're going to see it through. And, yeah, just keep pushing and keep going. And yeah, thankful for that we stuck to our guns. They're like, this is going to be his church. We're going to listen to him. And we've said it from the beginning. The only thing sacred at Life Church is Jesus, you know? And so everything else we can change, move, do differently. If he tells us to do it, then yeah, we're gonna do it. So.
So we came like 6 years into all of that, you know, and we probably, I don't know, maybe 150, 200.
Is that how many people were here?
Maybe. We had one service. We were upstairs when we came, and so, you know, the cafe had just started, you know, at that time. I think we came December 26th. And I remember kind of seeing it in the paper. I think it was like November-ish or something, maybe.
When the cafe started.
When the cafe started and stuff like that. So, you know, let's, you know, talk a little bit about what that looked like. You know, why did you decide to put a cafe in a church? You know, I mean, that's the norm now, but then that really wasn't the norm around here. I mean, that's what a lot of churches are going to. So, you know. So,
is it like a lot of churches have like businesses in their church now?
I feel like, you know, coffee shops, bookstores, things like that. I mean, we'll talk about Champs here too, but I don't think a lot of them have gyms in their churches. You know, we are unique.
Yeah. Well, cool. I think from the beginning, I have always said that I think the church is going to have to be different, not different in the gospel. Like the gospel's the same and scripture's the same, but I think churches had got into this competition of like when we came here to plant the church, the new competition was who could have live music or like worship teams. Like, so if you could be a church with a live, not a lot, you know, live band, you know what I mean? And playing drums, and you had lights, and you did a different service than what was traditional. People flocked to it, right? Like that was and what I had seen for multiple years was just who could do it better, who had the most money, and whoever had that, the deck just kept shuffling, right? So people were here, and then, this church opened, and they're so much better, and they have so much more, and then they'd shift the deck over there. But I don't know how much it was reaching people for Christ. So I said, long term, if we're going to be able to reach people who don't know Jesus, I think the church has to start thinking outside of the box. Because number one, we're never going to be able to compete. You can't compete, and nor do I want to. Like, I don't want to compete in the market of who can do the best at everything. I just want to be able to do things differently. So one of the differences that I saw is that they should use their building as a community center that's open to the public, so that people would see the church not as this sacred building that only certain people could come to, but it was a building where everybody gathered, right? And so the vision of having a big building from the beginning was, I want a place where everybody can gather. I don't want this, because if you make it sacred, you know what I mean? Like the idea that it's different than any other place, then what you do also is you create a sense of entitlement to the people that are coming. Like, it's our building, it's our stuff. I don't know if you ever went to a church where, Nick, did you ever have this experience when you went to church where it's like, well, these people want to come in and use it, and we got to charge them rent because they might break something, they might get the carpet dirty, and we can't ever let anybody else from the community use it because what if they mess up our stuff?
Right. Yeah. If they're not a church member,
yeah, you
you're
can't.
out of luck.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, what kind of representation is it to a community who doesn't know Jesus that you have these exclusive buildings that are probably nicer than a lot of buildings in the whole community, right? They have gyms, they have, nice kitchens, like they have huge ability to do it. But then if you're not a believer, you don't ever get to walk in them. So could we create that? And then the other part was, can we create something that makes it so that, one, you could include men? That was always my passion. I thought that the church was struggling to figure out how to get men involved. And part of it is I thought church is designed for women, and so like the way that, not us now. Like if you see our new stage design or our new design, podcast design, Jennifer and her team is now, we have a podcast designed for men, right?
Yes. I wanted it to look more like you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But churches tend to lend themselves to be more for women, right? And you didn't see guys in church. And so like guys are motivated, entrepreneurs, different things, but how do you fit in if you're not a worship leader, if you're not a Sunday school teacher, if you're not a greeter? Right. Well, business. I mean, that was my passion too, is that they could fit in with business. And so we had saw business for mission ideas when we were overseas, like churches that would start businesses, hire local people, give those local people the gospel, and then use the profits from their business to fund churches. Because in all over the world, nobody's got huge budgets, but they're planting churches everywhere, but they don't have huge budgets to do it. And so we tried to be leases for a while. So there was a factory in the back and the school was in the front. And we just got to—
What school was in the front?
Indiana Tech.
Okay.
Yeah. So Indiana Tech, that's now up north, right?
So they use like this part over by the cafe, or they use like all the conference rooms?
All of the front conference rooms. Yeah. They used all of those, and they would do school at night. And there was an office here. Pam Feck was the leader, and she had a office here, and people would come in. And then there was a factory, in the back. And so anyway, so we got to a point where I just said, this isn't working. Like, especially with, the school, and what would it be like to be able to put in a cafe? And so we just started dreaming about it and started to, try to figure out, because the problem is, cafes aren't big money makers, but they're huge relational gathering points. And so we knew we'd never be a Starbucks. We knew we'd never be a drive-through type coffee shop, but could we create an environment where people could gather together? And so the reason it's called the Cafe of Hope is that we felt like if you came in through relationships of the people that you would meet, the baristas that would serve you, through the conversations you have, that we live in a hopeless world sometimes, but you could come in here and you could get or feel hope. And so our first logo said the Cafe of Hope, and there was like a coffee stain on a napkin. And the idea was that you would leave this place with the only hope that would truly change your life, which was the hope of Jesus, right? And there would be something imprinted on you. And it might be through buying a cup of coffee, and that through buying your coffee, or through the purchase that you'd use, you could help somebody else come to know Jesus. And again, like everything we do, it was a rough start, and getting in. So I probably shouldn't say what happened, but it was just a rough start in the beginning, but has evolved in a great opportunity for people from the community to come in and have totally enjoyed seeing that grow and seeing the commitment that Life Church had to getting a business going, because they took a lot of opposition too. Like, why would a church ever start a coffee shop.
That was just the whole concept when we started coming, it's like, I couldn't, even as I was a volunteer staff person at first, we keep talking about like how we use our building. And I'm like, I could not wrap my mind around it. Why do we do this? But now, of course, all these years later, I totally get it. I've seen all the fruit from it. I've seen people come to church because of it.
Right.
Relationships grow because of it. It's like, that was one of the first things. I would come down here and always get my coffee, and then it was just a great place to be. And then I started sneaking doing little different things, that I would see would need done and stuff, because it's just, you just feel, you feel the Holy Spirit when you walk in the building. There's just something different.
Well, and it's also cool. I mean, other churches who don't have the space that we have used this, as an opportunity to do meetings and small groups. And so to me, it was, if we are going to be about kingdom work, right? So that's always what I said. I don't want to build an empire. I think empire building in church is ugly. I don't want to build the empire of Life Church. I want to build the kingdom of God. Yeah. And I want to know that Life Church was a part of it. Well, I think empire building is exclusive, right? You just do things that benefit Life Church. And what you have seen is, the Cafe of Hope, it was a huge sacrifice for Life Church to open up this building and maintain this building and keep things going. And, to be able to say, like, this is about the kingdom. It's not about the empire. It's not about Life Church. This is about, in fact, there's still people to this day that would be like, well, I didn't even know the Cafe of Hope and Life Church were connected, which is fine with me. That doesn't really bother me. It's just that I think it shows the vision behind it, that this wasn't just about building up Life Church, which is what I think a lot of people thought, you're doing a cafe and you just want to trap people, right? Like you get them in here and you want to trap them into coming to your church. But I think that was, So the cafe I love. I still to this day, I don't even sit in my office to do all my meetings down there to be able to see people come in and out. And that's a great joy to see the building being able to be used. And so.
Yep. So 7 days a week.
Yeah, 7 days a week.
Milky Way is the best coffee, so come get one. Yeah. So.
Well, and again, it's just great space.
It is.
Great opportunity. And don't forget, there's a vision behind it. I've always, I shouldn't get on my Walmart kick in case anybody's, I've just said one of the things as Christian people, this goes with it. Like, the idea is you need to buy with purpose. You need to shop with purpose. You need to do life on purpose. You need not on what's comfortable and convenient. You need to do things on purpose. So part of coming to the cafes, you have to purposely want to come here.
Right.
Like very seldom is somebody driving by, but if you come here, we just think because of your purchases, because of your opportunities to be here, because of the relationships that you might build, like that's purposeful buying, purposeful and intentional time spent, and that God can just do, amazing things through that. So
because the cafe, they did a thing a couple months ago where they gave all the day sales to Harmony Home. We have another small business that we sell her cake pops, so we're supporting them. Then Creative Abilities, we can sell all of their things here too. So there's a lot of different things than just coming in to get for the cafe that you can support many different people.
Yeah,
in the
like
community.
The purchases that you have and the things that you make, most of the stuff that you're buying has purpose behind it. So it's good.
We just don't do things around here to do things.
That's right.
Yes.
You don't want to be jacking around. Time is short. Time is short. Right.
Okay, so we talked about the Cafe of Hope. So Champs Academy. So I know the business left, LSI, I think was what it was called, left. And then it's like, okay, now what do we do with this
so there was
space?
A lot of conversation around turning it into a warehouse. And I keep thinking back of this, how many times the elders, I'm thankful for our elders who put up with listening to me and buying into my dreams. Because it could easily went the other way. You could have had elder teams that just been like, let's play it safe. Let's not take some of these risks. And so when they wanted, the idea was turn it in, and we tried to find that, like, could it be, space? But I said two things we need to process. One, if God ever sees this grow, like we want to be able to move into a space to be able to grow. We don't want to be able to have another opportunity where we have nowhere to go.
Right.
And so, and at the time I was coaching football. And so my kids were going up to what's called AWP. So Athletes with Purpose. Great. I don't know if it still exists, but at the time it was a great thing. Like you go up there, you work out, they do a devotion, they help these athletes get college scholarships, be centered on Christ, get better physically, mentally, emotionally, and just prepare them for the next level. But the problem was it was in Fort Wayne and it cost a ton of money, and so I said, hey, why wouldn't we just recreate it? So I got a group of people that I was coaching with, and just says, Keenan leaked the Austin Faust to me, and we were going to be in business together. And I said to Life Church, like, hey, we'll get it started. We'll invest the money into it and we'll get it going with the same concept. Like we want to reach kids, right? So we want to get high school kids over and we want to bring them in, and we want to be able to do the same thing. And it did start that way. Like we used to do, bring them in, train kids. We used to have the turf out there, unfortunately, is from the Green Bay Packers indoor facility, so we put turf in because we used to have college combines here. So we would have kids work out, colleges would come down, they would meet with all of the kids, they would watch what they did. But again, like most things, and nothing against Austin or nothing against Keenan, but they're like, it's too much work. I'm out. Costs too much. I'm out, don't want to do it. And so I'm like, okay, well, I tried to keep it going. And again, Champs has evolved into what you see today, but the concept was always the same, right? The idea was work out or have opportunities for people to come in, do things together to build relationships, have opportunities to, again, have people in your building that would not normally be here. And ultimately, whether it's through mind, body, or soul, being able to help and introduce them to Jesus through group workouts or through events that we would do. And so it went from that and then evolved into somewhat of a CrossFit gym. And then we brought in another gym to work with us, and that didn't work so well. But I think this is the key. And I think this is how Life Church has always been. We just keep evolving.
Right.
We evolve into the things that make sense. We try to listen to where God wants us to go, and we just keep evolving into, the same, moving into whatever it is that God has, and we'll continue to move into what we think, God, where he wants us to be. So, I mean, it's evolved a lot from where it was. And when we brought Rayanne in, Rayanne kind of took it and transformed it into what it is today. And it's been kind of growing it since then. And I think has done a phenomenal job. Again, same thing. I mean, your money, you're working out all that, the profits that go to that. If there's profits in there, be able to help people. They just did Amazing Grace, where they gave money back to Cancer Center Services as $1,500. And so that's the idea, right? Continue to do things with purpose, on purpose, and pray for opportunities to give people Jesus. And so it's another, business. And I think the thing that people need to realize is that these businesses, they're DBAs, so the Cafe of Hope is doing, and Champs Academy, it's all Life Church, but we made them into those DBAs so that they could run separate books and be able to understand their profits. But at the end of the day, the elders and the leadership of Life Church have made these decisions to help these businesses keep going as a mission, right? And I think that's really important for people to see is that, if it wasn't for them buying into the vision that I had, they wouldn't be here. And because it hasn't been easy. I mean, they didn't start off making money.
No, they did not. We would have to fund them. I've done the book since 2015, and we would have to, give them money every month to let them go. But that was something that
It's a mission.
It was a mission, and we believed in what it was, and to build relationships with people. And so, we did that.
Right. So Life Church and the leadership of Life Church has made it possible for both of them to keep going and to grow into what they are today. But I just think it shows, a commitment to understand that these are just as important as what you do on a Sunday morning. you know, from the opportunity of reaching people. So
Yeah, but we'll throw a little praise in there because now they're sufficient on their own. We don't give them any money, you know, and they can.
That's what I mean. It just evolved.
It has. And
but like everything, right? And this is the key for everybody. And that if you've been checked out, you need to hear this. If you want to see the fruits, you have to sacrifice. You have to be willing to say, if you're going to go into something and you want to someday see the fruit without the sacrifice, you will never see the fruit without it. And so anybody that's out there that is on the precipice of making decisions like this, make it with the decision. It's going to cost you a lot. And it's not just financially, it's emotionally, it's strain, it's time, it's all of that. And so when you make that commitment, make that commitment. And that's been, again, the reason that Life Church still exists today is because people were willing to say, like, listen, I'm going to count the costs. I'm going to keep putting the time in. I'm going to keep understanding that God has a plan, and I'm going to buy into a vision, you know, that says that God's had a plan, and I'm going to go down this road. And because it does not come without cost, you know, and it hasn't came without cost. And that's why I just wanted to say, like, I'm thankful for people who believed in, you know, because that's what it takes. Like if you guys are out, if you're out there today and you want to help somebody, like you're a guy that's been there and done that, like, and you want to help some of these young guys get going. I mean, that's the thing. Be somebody that will stand beside them through the journey, encourage them through the journey, support them financially through the journey, because visions only come because people sacrifice to be able to make those things happen and evolve with it and encourage through it. So, yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so I guess through the years, you know, we've started out with one service, and then we went to 2 services and like 3 services, and then we moved down to champs. And, you know, so what did that kind of look like when you made those decisions to go to different services? Was it just more attendance numbers, or were there reasons behind?
What's the funny thing about, I don't know if Nick remembers this, or maybe you remember this, but we were at 2 services upstairs. So we'd grown, and the upstairs wasn't very big anyway. I mean, I can't remember if maybe we could put 200 people in there.
350. Yeah.
On a Sunday?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I don't ever remember us stuffing that many people in there. I think when we started the church, we bought 275 chairs.
Okay, probably. Okay. If I think we have like 250 of those gray chairs.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think there were
more than that. They're around. Anyway.
Either way, I think we used to. I think we used to be set up for like 225 to 250. You know, or otherwise people would be out in the no man's land. And
yes.
So anyway, so we were at a place where, and this has kind of been consistent for Life Churches, is that in the beginning, you were naturally uncomfortable because it's weird as crap to come to a church with 50 people, you know? So there was this natural, if you're coming or if you are a staff member, and I said, hey, Nick, and hey, Jennifer, you need to be reaching people, and we need to be able to figure out how to reach people. And you'd be like, I know, there's not enough money. There's not enough people. There's, you know, we're just not doing it. Well, then the church started to get some people. So if you get that 150 or you get to 200 people, I felt like the church was getting way too comfortable. Like, I think even people coming, like this is part of a problem, is when you come to a church and there's only a few people, you're like, I better invite my friend. This is weird, right? So if you come into a church and you see like, oh, you don't think you need to help, and you don't think that you need to invite. And so I just told our staff, and you might have been in that meeting, I'm like, we'll just make everybody uncomfortable again. So do 3 services so they come to church and there's still empty seats. Yeah. And I think at the time, we just told everybody, every single empty seat inside of a church represents a soul. And don't ever forget that. When you walk in here, so if you didn't see any of them, we'll just make some. So we'll make it so there's empty seats. And so we went to 3 services, and I don't even know that was, the concept behind it was a great idea to make people uncomfortable and remember that our job will always be the same. 3 services was terrible. Like, I would never go back to doing 3 services. Preaching 3 services, the poor worship team for 3 services. You didn't get out of here till like 1:30 or 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. And I don't know. I don't know that was the best idea. But anyway, the concept has always been the same. How do we create environments where the people that are coming would understand why they're here? Right. So you can come and you can get filled and you can listen. But at the end of the day, you need to invite, you know, and our number one marketing tool, we've talked about this as a staff. Like, we can do some marketing, but let's not replace what the marketing that Jesus told us to do, which was live a life for Christ, show people Jesus, and they'll be attracted to Jesus. Right? Like, we can do marketing, but the best marketing out there is Jesus. So just show him to the world. And people will come. Right. So don't forget that part of it. But creating environments so that we could continue to be uncomfortable. And I was somewhat of a skeptic because we had grown, you know, because churches go through phases of popularity, you know, and so and it's just funny when people said this all the time, like, oh, you guys are growing, but it's because you're the college church. I'm like, well, is that a bad thing or a good thing? Because it would be. I mean, I bet we used to have 60, 70 college students every Sunday.
Even more than that.
Was there?
And they were highly invested, a lot of them, and serving. And
and then the summer would come and be like, whoa,
they're all gone. We can tell they're gone.
Like, you guys thought you were good, and then the college kids left, but brought tons of energy, you know, but then over time, you're not the college church, you know, and so some of those things just the ebb and flow. So I'm always a skeptic of, like, is this just another, like, you're growing for a little bit, you're not going to grow. And then, you know, when we got to the point of COVID, which was a huge, I mean, I don't even know where to start with COVID other than the fact of I don't really watch TV or the news. And I can remember coming into a staff meeting, and I think the question was, what are we going to do about COVID? And I'm like,
because they were telling us we had to shut down. I mean, this was coming, and you're supposed to shut down. And what are we going to do?
What's COVID? I didn't even know it.
True.
I didn't know what it was. So you guys were saying, hey, how are we going to prepare?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that happen, you know, inside of all of that. And I think in the beginning, nobody really knew, you know, what it was going to be like. But the further it went on, you know, the more it was like, hey, this isn't Ebola. Like, you're not going to bleed out if you touch somebody. And again, I'm not saying any disrespect of anybody that lost loved ones from COVID. I get that it was a real thing. But we came to the place where I'm like, listen, this isn't China, you know, and we should be able to open up our doors and nobody has to come. I mean, at this point, what was so cool about it is I had went to Nick a year before COVID ever hit. And I said, hey, Nick, create an online platform that's not Facebook Live. Nothing against Facebook Live, but I used to hate, like, people would make these weird camera angles. They're too far away and you can't hear anybody and the worship sounds like garbage, you know, and they'd be like, hey, we're online. And I'm like, I know, and you look dumb. Right? Like, it's so terrible. So, I mean, Nick had worked on it for a long time. Like, Nick had worked on the concept of truly creating a online church, a place where we could talk back and forth, a place where our worship wouldn't sound stupid, where we could have different camera angles where we could, like, so, I mean, Nick had worked a long time to get prepared for life online. And I think we had launched it for 6 months before COVID, Nick. I don't remember. No?
January.
It was January.
Like,
oh, really?
6 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was.
But you had been working on it for a long time.
Yes.
Me and you sat down in 2019 in January. And we started talking about it.
Yeah, a year.
Yeah. So you had been working on it a long time. So we were prepared anyway and had been going down that road anyway. And so when we got to the place of, okay, what's our options? And I'm like, well, that you could open up, but you had to have X amount of space. I don't remember what it was. And there's just no way we could do it. And I said to Nick, I'm like, hey, you know how you've been asking to move down to Champs and buy new equipment and get us prepared? How about 2 weeks? I don't remember. It might have been a couple more than 2 weeks.
No, that was about it.
It wasn't much because I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. We're going to open up. And I had said out of respect to the staff, like, if you don't want to come, I completely understand it. We'd say to the people, if you don't want to come, I completely understand it. But at the end of the day, I feel like when they were letting essential people stay open, I'm like, the most essential thing you could ever get in your life is Jesus. And so we're going to be open, you know, and we're going to do it and nobody has to come. We're going to have it online. And I just think, I don't know, like, but when we opened up and started doing church down at Champs, I just feel like things have grown I think they have grown monumentally, through that. And I do think that there was an interest of like when Sherry was sick and then, me preaching through, the whole, I'm just sitting here thinking about it, like that whole journey.
Yeah. I was just telling one of my good friends, I'm like, she sacrificed for the church to grow.
Oh,
and you walk the walk. Now I'm going to cry. So I got my Kleenexes. You walk the walk, and you preach through all of that, and people saw Jesus through you. And it's like, if I ever have to experience that, my faith has grown because of that. I'm not fearful of things. I know God's got it all. He's got a plan, and I am not worried what tomorrow's going to bring.
Yeah.
But it's watching you, go through all of that and seeing how God worked in you, and I think that's what attracts people. You're the real deal.
Yeah, I think everybody here, the thing that's cool about Life Church is authenticity.
Yeah.
We are all our own people on a journey, trying to understand Christ as a staff, as, a leadership team. Just we're people that are trying to go down that road. And so I think there was this solidification. It's so cool that, 2 weeks ago, Baptism Sunday, 2 weeks ago, 50 some people got baptized. Brady sent me a text afterwards. And did I already tell you this story?
No.
So when the kids were small and the church was terrible, when I say the church was terrible, it just wasn't working.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing was happening that was working. And you remember the story in scripture where the prophet comes up to the widow and she's out of oil, and so he says, go get jars, right? And so they went out and collected a bunch of jars, and the idea is that the oil kept coming until the jars ran out. And I said to my kids, like, listen, here's the thing I want you to understand about what's going to happen, and this is what you're going to see from me as a father and from your mom and from this church. We're not in charge of the oil, but we're going to collect the jars. And we're just going to keep putting jar after jar after jar after jar, because at the end of the day, the only thing that stops the movement of the God is faith of people, and that if we have enough faith to keep putting out jars, if we have enough faith to just keep saying, God, we want more, God, we want more, God, we want more, and God, we trust you for more. That faith, God says he's going to keep filling the jars. And so from the beginning and still where we are today, to this day, we're still putting out jars saying, God, keep filling it up. We're keeping to trust you for things that don't make any sense, but we're going to keep putting them out there. And he sent me, he's like, Dad, I just want to say how proud I am to be your son, to know that you and mom were people that just kept putting the jars out. I mean, that's awesome. You know what I mean? And that, to me, is what has made Life Church so cool, is because, I have lots of dreams and I have lots of things, like big ideas, but the staff of Life Church are the one putting the jars out. You know what I mean? The people that have been here are the people putting the work in. Like, I can only do so much, and it would have never been possible. Like, I dream a lot and think a lot and throw out 5 bazillion ideas, and I'm sure that that's frustrating, but the staff—
it's not frustrating, is it, Nick? Never.
But the staff of Life Church has said, okay, we'll put the jar out, and we'll put the jar out, and we'll put the jar out. And I just think for those that have been here who keep putting the jars out for a long period of time, have just watched God, not film. So I think that was part of it, is I do think that there was somewhat of an authenticity through, Sherry being sick, and I think through Sherry's death, of, again, I'm proud of my kids got up and spoke, I was able to preach her, her funeral. And I just think for people, there's this, like, there is this authenticity. We say one thing and we do what we say to the best, to the best of our ability. And so I think some of that has been good for people. I mean, I've at least heard that from people, like that through all of that was good for my faith, and good for, the things that are happening. So I just think during whatever has happened during that COVID time, and then what's continued to happen, I think that's, and we're at the same point today. I mean, we're full. and what are we going to do and how are we going to, keep processing, because we don't want to ever stop reaching people.
Right.
I mean, that's,
right.
we're going to continue to do, which I thought was cool. Nick, did you hear this about the guy at the work release that got baptized in the sink?
No.
Yeah. So this last week, so kudos to, again, Nick's behind the scenes. He doesn't get enough credit for all of the stuff that he puts together to do. So just the impact that Life Online has had. So Nick set it up where they could do it out at the work release program. And I got a text after the service that, hey, there's a guy out there and they've been watching, and we send a group of guys out there to worship with him. He's like, I want to get baptized. Do I need to go to the church? And Ernie's like, you don't have to go to the church. Let's go to the sink. So he takes him over to the sink, gets a cup of water and pours it over his head, and they're all celebrating.
Wow.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we're praying for. Like, that never existed before. I had somebody to come up to me after church this Sunday, said, hey, I'm from Detroit. My son goes to HU. I just want to tell you, the Life Online has been a blessing. I watch it every week. I get a group of people that come together. We watch it together. It's been transformational for us. So understanding to think outside of the box, to never stop reaching people, never stop giving opportunities for people, never stop with the idea that while you still have breath, we get a chance, to give people hope. And I think that's what's been so cool, and what you're seeing at Life Church is people that are just like, let's keep trying anything. Whatever it is, let's try it and see if it works.
Yeah. And that's what's great about you. It's like, we mess up, it's okay. Let's try something else.
Because it's like me. Yeah, the grace
like
of being able. And that's what I said. That's what's so cool about being here is that we've had some really great ideas that, and they turned out like crap. And I'm like, well, thanks for trying them at least.
Yeah.
So
I guess what's your biggest challenge then? Through 19 years.
Yeah. So I think a couple things. So probably the hardest and the greatest part is bringing people in that that are on staff at Life Church. So this is one of them. And leading them probably different than they've ever been led in their life. So I think that has been a great challenge, because I think it gets misinterpreted sometimes by the way that I lead. Like, I think sometimes my leadership gets interpreted in ways that I don't mean it to. And so that's been challenging, because I've always said the greatest gift I will ever have at Life Church is being able to watch the people that are closest to me grow in their relationship with Christ and turn into not what I want them to be. Like, that's the thing is that I never wanted to hire somebody that it was just to do my bidding. Like, hey, we need somebody, fill a spot. We have a list. I wanted to hire people who love the Lord. And we do start with a list, but most people that are here probably don't have the same job they started with.
I don't. I know Nick doesn't either. So.
And that's hard and good at the same time, and it's the challenge of all of that is that I just want to know you and what God, your heart is, and what are you passionate about? What's God doing? And how do we make you into the best version of you? And then the job, we'll get it done. We'll figure out the whole job part of it and making it all work. And so that's been challenging to learn, and learn together, right? But that's more of my leadership style is that I just want to get to know people. I want to love people well, and I want them to see themselves. The thing that always stuck with me is I read a book one time that said, the reason that Jesus could call Cephas Peter is because he saw Peter in Cephas, right? Like, he saw the future. He saw what that person's going to be. He saw the beauty in what they have. And I want to be a leader like that. I want you to see yourself the way I see you and the way that God sees you, because that's way different than the way you perceive yourself, or even sometimes the way other people perceive you.
Yeah. You've done that with me. 13 years we've known each other,
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
Been a while.
And we always say what I was when I started here, when I came in the door is not what I am today. And I remember a conversation, it was probably like 4 years ago or something like that. And you're like, I see you meeting with more people. I see you doing that, and God's revealed that. And that's one of my greatest joys,
Right.
And you always spend time trying to figure out who we are and help guide us down those paths, and if something's not working, it's like, okay, well, what do you like? How can I help you navigate and do what God's calling you to do? So we don't have to stay where we're at. We continually can move around and bring people in and to help us, when.
And I think this is hard, but like when I would say, we say this in Discover Life, like people want to know where's Life Church going? I said, the greatest, most impactful, transformational stuff that Life Church is going to do is in you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know this. Life Church will never, ever shy away from reaching people to the best of our ability, teaching them and sending them back out to do. Like, that's never going to change. Like, we are always going to be passionate about the 3 chairs. We're always going to be passionate about saying we need to be reaching people who don't know. We are going to be passionate about discipleship. We're going to be passionate about being missional. Like, it's important to stay missional. That's always going to be how we get it done.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the greatest thing is to open up the wealth of what God made you to be. And saying, just use it on purpose and let's see what God does. Instead of, I think the church tends to lean towards, we have a lot of great ideas that we need to hire people to do. I'm like, I would just much rather do what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, what's God saying in your heart? What is, what's happening? And I think some of the most impactful things that Life Church have done have come because of somebody's heart of saying, like, this is what I see God doing, and this is what I want to be able to do. And they've just seen incredible impact. And we've just been like, how can we help? And what can we do? And how can we, come behind you? But I just think for me, that's also a challenge, right? To convince people that when you come here, if you want to really see lasting change, dream. Yeah. If you want to see lasting change, open up your heart to be used by God. If you want to see lasting change, instead of somebody else telling you what to do, listen to what the Holy Spirit tells you to do, and then we'll help you get it done. And I don't think that's easy for people.
No, it's not easy. And I can think of 4 things that we've done because of people, just off the bat. Like, we did a prayer walk because Chris Jackson wanted to do that. Yep. We did Running with Christ because Jim and Ellen Nunley wanted to do that. Yep. We have Hands of Hope. That's part of what we do because of E. Blackburn. And then just even like the laundry ministry came out of brainstorming with me and Julie, like Wilson, and so it's like
Chuck Davis doing the Ride for Christ. I mean, when he does that right. I mean, that was his idea. Isn't that his name?
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's his name, isn't it? Tomlinson.
Chuck Tomlinson.
I said Davis. Sorry, Chuck. Yeah. So, I mean, he did the Blessings of the Bike, right? Because, hey, this is something we love. This is something we want to do. Yes. He's excited about it. They're adding other people to it. Yep. And just been tons of stuff. And if we forgot you, but
the new people come to the church like, I write, and they're meeting, anything to build relationships. With people.
And I just think, like I said, I think whatever God has put on your heart, I think those are going to be the best things yet to come. But I think it's the greatest challenge. But it'll also be my greatest. We're going to be doing a series coming up called Legacy, and so my greatest joy will be able to say that because of what I did, that I could watch people grow, watch people become who they are, not what I want, not what I want to mold them into. Because I think that's the key of a legacy. A legacy isn't turning somebody into you. Right. I think that's part of the problem. Like, part of the problem in legacy is we want people to be like us because we're effective with our time. We're effective with our money. We're effective. And I think the greatest legacy that you could ever leave on this earth is helping other people be who God created them to be. Like, I think that will be I think that will last forever and ever and ever. And you can see it in raising your kids. Every kid is different. And so you raise them in a way to create a legacy, right? Who did God create you to be, Isaac and Brady, and like all of them? What did he create you to be? And I'm going to help you get that done. That is a legacy that I think will just last forever and ever. And that That's what I want to see. That will be my greatest accomplishment in life, is that if I could help other people be who God created them to be, the best version of themselves, I think that'll be a legacy that will last forever, that I'll be super excited, for in my life. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes into so what's your favorite memory then?
Wow. So yeah, to pick, I'll just put it in some overall terms. Sure. I mean, some of my favorite memories of Life Church have been the moments where the church came together and did some things, like the first cowboy church we ever did. Like that's a huge.
You talk about that a lot.
I know. Just because, again, it was so cool to get a church, to convince a church to not do church on a Sunday morning. I mean, that you could convince people to do that, and and convince an elder team when we don't have enough money anyway.
To take a Sunday off. When
to take a Sunday off. Like, people don't give on a Sunday morning. To be able to see that was cool, because I think that solidified this idea, is like, we are creating a group of people at Life Church that we don't just say we're going to think outside of the box, like that we are going to. And Jim Nunley, then, who did Running for Christ, was at, the first cowboy church. So that was just cool memory. The baptisms, I mean, can you ever, I mean, baptism Sunday, from the first to where we are today, they're memories of, that you just never get out of your mind. Baptizing my children, and being able to see my children be baptized and watching them, on their journey. So just lots of memories of just people, watching people do things, watching people grow, being proud of, the steps that they've taken. I think that's the gift that Life Church has given me, is being in the lives of people, knowing where they were 19 years ago to where they are today, knowing where Courtney came on the first Sunday, right? She was one of the first people to come to Life Church, and to where she is today, and what God's done in her life, and the challenges that they've been through. But it's somebody that you still have a relationship with, and that you can watch, and that you can see. And so, I mean, 19 years worth of being with people and watching them and creating memories with them. So, I don't know if one specific.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
So, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself when you first started?
Never give up. The same thing I would tell everybody is that longevity in leadership is not something you see anymore. So if you're out there and you're in a job, and I get it, like, there's times to change and there's times to move and there's times to do things differently, but don't give up too early. Like, I think there's times in our lives where it's like, I mean, everybody that's worked here has wanted to give up. I mean, I don't know.
Multiple times.
I don't know one person that has worked at Life Church that hasn't said, this is too hard. This is too difficult. There's lots of challenges, and again, not for anybody that has left. I don't mean that, but for those that have stayed and been around and have watched some of, what you're seeing today. I mean, I don't know how you just don't sit back and be like, I mean, look, we have a good God doing great things, and you're able to see. And I just think it's going to keep going, and so longevity in leadership, like, stay around long enough to see the fruit. And especially in the church, I just think that too many pastors moving on, too many pastors losing focus, too many, leadership teams shifting people all the time. And again, I just think it's a lot of giving up, or, a lot of quitting too early, and you don't get to see it. So I would just keep reminding myself back then, don't give up, keep working hard. It's worth the sacrifice. Sometimes you wonder.
You have those seasons where you're kind of like, gosh, this is so hard, and then all of a sudden God does something and you're like, wow, I'm glad I was still here to see that. Yeah.
And I know for me personally, I've never had a desire to go to another church.
Mm-hmm.
Never had a desire to preach at another church. I've never had a desire to, I want to preach here till they lead here, until they fire me or I croak, one of the two, because this is just my home.
Yeah.
These are the people that I love. These are the people that have, just been with me through a long journey. So it's been good.
Yeah. So what does the future look like? What other, and more business for missions that you would like to do or anything?
We talked about this the other day. I've been trying to sell the church should buy rental houses idea, because again, conceptually, the things we're always trying to figure out, like, I think conceptually the church in the future is going to have to continue to think outside of the box. Like, I think that church as usual, because just as an example, there is no competition on who has the best worship team now. I mean, you're either Elevation Worship or us, right? Like, I mean,
we're pretty good.
No, I don't. You know what I mean, though? Like, a lot of people have great worship teams. A lot of people have live worship. A lot of people use lights. A lot of people, it was way new back then to do put things on screens. And like, that was just all. Listen, that day, you're either going to be at the highest level of production at some of these like huge, large churches, or you're going to be where we are today. Yeah. And although that might have attracted people, that's not what's attracting people today. Like, that's not what's bringing people. Before, people would be like, oh, I could bring, somebody to church and it's not weird because the music's more like what I listen to on the radio. But I don't think that's the answer today. I think the reason that was the answer before is that a lot of people grew up in a home that at least talked about church, right? So they had been in church, they had tried a church, they were probably bored with the church. And so when somebody said, come to a church, it's not boring, that worked, right? So a lot of people came. Now we have a generation of people that have grown up never being in a church and would see zero need to ever walk in the door, right? They're not like, it's not like I didn't like it and it was boring. I never went. And it had no value. I see no value of it. There's no reason to go. So I think the church is going to have to continue to think outside of the box on how we're going to reach a generation of unchurched people that don't know Christ, and how to be able to give them hope. And I think that can be done in multiple different ways, but I think more business for missions. The whole idea of the rental house was, if you get a rental house and you get people in, it creates some great opportunity for relationship, like gives us the opportunity to be in relationship with the family that's there, to make it so they're not, like renting from a slumlord, which is sometimes the case. Like, you rent from people that don't take care of anything. And, so it's renting from somebody who'll take care of you, not only keep your house nice, but mind, body, soul. Like, we would, help you, give you opportunities to come down and work out, come to your house and fix stuff, be able to help you with mentors for budgeting and finances and, just putting things together. And so trying to find people that would buy like seed houses and give them to the church to say, hey, here's a house, get it started. And, you can start putting people in it. And because I know there's a need for, transitional housing, which a lot of people are doing, and housing for men and women, but I'm thinking just regular families that are trying to get on their feet, families that are struggling to get by. These would be great opportunities from a business for mission standpoint to be able to do. But I think for Life Church, for the future, we're going to have to just continue to press into what it is that God wants and try to be obedient and open ourselves up to new platforms and new opportunities to be able to take the gospel out. And I think some of the stuff that's happening, we're doing online. I think some of the stuff that people are talking about doing outside of the church, I think some of the things that you just talked about, that people who dreamed of stuff and did things that weren't necessarily like scripted things that you're going to do every year that are a program of Life Church. They're just things that people do, and we're going to support them. I think you're going to see people come to know Christ in those ways. And I'm excited about that.
So as we continue to keep growing, and not going to go to 3 services, what does that look like? Someone had asked us, are you going to buy a different building, or are you going to plant another church? May not even have an answer for that yet, because we process things and we wait for God to move,
right.
But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would love at some point, I know this isn't on the table anywhere, so nobody freak out when I say this, but I want to do a Saturday night service, because I do think that there are people that work on Sunday mornings, like the working professionals that are in hospitals or nurses or people that are Sunday morning workers, that you'd have the opportunity. So that's always out there to process. Does that give us an opportunity to reach a group of people that we haven't been able, to reach or be able to do? I think there's always the idea of how do you continue to transform this faith in Champs to use it to the best of our ability, and make sure that we, grow into that first before we'd ever, be able to expand the building. I think that for us, it would be trying to use all that we have first before we would ever, we'll never move. So we don't, I say never. Yeah. I guess if God says we're going to do it, we'll do it. But it would have to be, an act of God. We wouldn't be like, oh, sell this building and go build a building somewhere. We love the downtown. We want to be in the downtown. We're here for a purpose. So want to continue to do that and stay here, for those purposes, and maybe add on to the back of it if we had to. Continue to think about what are other opportunities, that there's a lot of churches today that are closing their doors, so we've processed, and talked about, because we have online capabilities, do we go into those places and, help them get going and, pipe our service in? And I don't know, I think there can be multiple different ways to continue to do it. But at this stage of the game, we're not going to move. We're not adding on yet. We're going to try to continue to utilize the space that we have to the best of our ability. Yeah. So,
I don't really have any more questions for you, but is there anything that you've thought about that we didn't talk about that you wanted to share as you've been, processing this podcast? And
why this thing again? I wrote this in my journal this morning. Thank you, God, for not giving up on me. That to me was because I've made a lot of mistakes in 19 years. You just don't know. I was trying the best I could. I look back on it and there's some things I just did wrong. Like some things that I thought was right and they weren't right. And I'm so thankful for a God who doesn't give up, and so, that for me was just a huge thank you. And thankful to a family who would support it, which is another huge deal. Like, you don't just plant a church and not cost you a lot in your home, and from your kids to your wife and just like everything that, Sherry had to put up with and getting it done and seeing, some of those things. So just a huge thank you. And again, thank you to Life Church's staff. They are the backbone of what goes on here. They're the ones that, you guys are the people that make all of these things work. And you guys are the people that are making it all happen. And I'm thankful that I can come to a church where I can dream, that I can allow God to speak, and that I work with a staff of people that for 19 years have put up with me saying, hey, I think this is what God wants us to do.
Okay, how do we do that, right?
No, I know. I don't think people realize what a special environment and a hard environment Life Church is. I think it's special because I think it's just, we see the fruit of listening and doing, but it's also hard as crap to do that because, getting calls on Saturday nights saying, or Saturday mornings, like, hey, this is what I need. And this is what I think God wants us to do. Or, hey, Nick, you got 2 weeks to move to Champs. Or, you have to have a special group of people that are willing to go down that road. And I just say all the time, I can't wait because as a preacher, you get way too much credit. You know what I mean? Like I get way too much credit on, because I'm just the guy that people see. You know what I mean? I'm the guy that's up there, and I can't wait for the day that I get to meet you guys in heaven with all of the people that you reached. You know what I mean? I'm going to be running to the gates with them, of the people that, because of what you did behind the scenes, because of what you did and the work that you're going to put in, like I'm going to come running down the road with the people that were in Nick's corner, the people that are in Jennifer's corner, the people that are in Corinne and Rayanne and Tammy and Taylor, like just all of the people, Michelle, like the people that you just did it behind the scenes and you worked as hard as you could and you did, and you don't always get to see it. You don't always get the people coming up like, oh, we just love your teaching and we love what you do. Like I hear that and it's very encouraging, but can you think of the day, that I'll be able to be in heaven and I'll get to run up with all of those people being like, see, I told you, look at this. Like
it was worth it.
Look at this. Like, I know you can't see it now. I know it's hard to put into words. I know that you're struggling, but look today, and then have all those people giving you hugs and saying thank you. And just knowing, for me, it's the reason that I've been here for 19 years, the reason that I'll be here as long as, God wants me to be, because that's a huge gift to be able to work in this environment. And I honestly don't think you could find this anywhere else. Like, I don't think working with the people that I work with in the groups, the things that we do and the way that we do things, I don't think I could go in another church and be able to lead the way that I lead here.
No, you would never be able to do that because you are your own creature.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But that is a true gift that we even get, So I know I'm going to speak for the whole church because we are thankful for you. And it's interesting you said, thanking God to let you be in this position, because how many people's lives have been touched? It's not just because of you, it's because of all of us too. Yeah. All the people who have been here, how many lives? And if you would have gave up early, it's like 6 years in, if you would have gave up on year 4, I wouldn't be here. Right. God wouldn't be using me in this way, and all the things that we've all had to go through, and I personally know sacrifices that your family had to make. Sherry and I were close. I mean, I was close with your kids. I mean, our families were close. And, so it's like, yeah, you could have not said, I'm not doing that, but you did. You did it, and so, so, thank you for continuing to fight the fight when it's not always easy. Yeah. But it's always worth it.
Always worth it.
Always worth it in the end. And so, so.
Yeah, well, again, thankful. Thank you to Life Church. Thank you to everybody. I hope we could continue to celebrate more birthdays and more birthdays and more birthdays. And just to be able to continue on with the process. And thank you to everybody that's been a part of it. And thank you for all of you guys that have joined us on the roundtable. Don't forget, do you want to put the number out there? Are we still doing the number thing?
Yeah, we just didn't do it. Well, we kind of did it last week because we wanted questions. So hopefully we answered some of your questions that you submitted today. So we'll have guests on every week. So if you want to submit a question to us, when I let you know who that person is, you can text podcast to 260-408-8383. And then we'll try to answer those questions to them. So.
Yeah, and don't forget, when the clips go out, like, share, comment, get it out there. Go to our, leave us a review. We'd love for you to leave us a review on wherever you're listening to the podcast or watching the podcast. If you're listening, make sure you go onto YouTube and watch at least once. You can see the new setup. You can see the new deer head. You can see, the hard work that Jennifer and Nick have put into getting this going, because I love it.
And we got a cowskin rug.
Yeah,
leather. We are all, we're in.
Again, thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.